Hello. I'm trying to go live on Instagram, so bear with me for just a second. Um, just a second. Let's see. I hope everybody's doing well. Just a minute. Hello, everybody. I am going live just to kind of have some impromptu cheer chat. I think this is what I was talking about, like with the podcast being on break for right now, and this being the last season of the podcast, that occasionally I might just go live and share my little 2 cents. And today we're going to talk about something that I'm sure you guys are all a little bit aware of. Never mind my background, you guys. Whoa. Um, but I wanted to talk about the DCC news that hit this week about the show Making the Team being canceled on CMT. So while people join, that's kind of the stuff I wanted to chat about today. I just also want to say thank you to everybody for the well wishes. My surgery went well. I'm still kind of recovering and whatnot, but I have been feeling better day by day. So I just appreciate all the well wishes and can't wait to get back to posting episodes for this final season. So without further ado, let's talk about it, okay? Because I know that show, I'm sure, has like gripped a lot of us over time, watching 16 seasons, I believe, of this show. I've had mixed feelings that go back and forth about the show. But overall, was it good for our space? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I think yes and no. But the news basically was that CMT, they are no longer going to be on that platform. And I remember when the news hit. Shout out to Sarah Hepla. Hopefully I'm saying your last name right. She is a writer and producer for Texas Monthly Podcasts. She did a whole podcast called America's Girls, kind of going through the history of the DCC and interviewing the actual cheerleaders over the years. And it was a really, really great podcast. I don't know if I talked about it enough, but I thought it was really, really thorough, so much information and things that I didn't know that I learned. Sarah and I connected for the podcast. I think it was like on episode 6, around kind of like a lot of the body image stuff that I ended up getting a little blurb in there. But she kind of broke the story about the cancellation of the show, and I, shared it on Twitter. Emily Liebert, former Rams cheerleader, who you guys know probably, she writes kick-ass articles for Jezebel, and she also wrote about this. And there's a lot of speculation as to why the show is no longer going to be on CMT, but I definitely kind of, as the news developed, had a little bit of a different take, and that's why I wanted to jump on with you guys, because it came out after I think Sarah posted the story. The Dallas Cowboys ended up putting out a press release kind of clarifying that, hey, the show's not going away. They're just negotiating a new deal on a new platform. And that just got me to thinking, and you guys know I always like to try to research, but there was a quote from the press release that I want to share with you guys and kind of give you a sense as to why I'm in my feels about it. But this is from Kelly Finglass. She says, "The global impact on our brand and the beautiful journeys of amazing performers and teammates have been amazing." Okay. "The women who competed and shared their personal journeys should be applauded." We'll come back to that. "Those who earn the right to wear the legendary uniform have influence and inspiration that deserves to be shared worldwide. My hope is to continue their stories with our fans more globally as we are in the process of negotiating a new partnership, and we look forward to continuing to feature the DCC on a new platform." Okay, so sounds great. Like, no fear, everybody. We're going to continue this this exposure of these women's amazing, beautiful journeys and them earning the right to wear this iconic uniform on a new platform. That was the gist. But then I kind of like looked at it a little bit more closely, right? And I just thought some words were triggering, right? So I'm sure you guys have seen it, right? Like whenever you're on like the DCC page or posts online, people comment often that they can't see the content, I guess, internationally. So on a global level, I don't know what CMT's reach is. I know they have the shows on their website, but people complain about not being able to watch the show live, or, you know, it's limited in terms of a worldwide reach. So it made sense to me when I saw that, like they're looking at a new media deal where you have like global impact, right? Where you're able to reach that fan of DCC that's complaining. Literally, they post about like not being able to see content, right? So that first came to mind, that they're looking at global impact. And then when I saw that part about these women who have shared their stories and whatnot and competed and all their personal journeys, they should be applauded. And I kind of was just like, they should be applauded. I mean, what about like they should be like compensated? You know what I'm saying? Like here you have, you know, Kelly Finglass and Charlotte, you know, what's her freaking last name? Anyway, give me some grace. God dang it, you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, they're executive producers of this show. Um, you know, Kelly and Judy, they're featured, I mean, obviously significantly in the production of this show. And they're at the negotiating table with some new media platform, right? Discussing the rights of this show and this global reach of this show. And they're doing it on behalf of like whoever's going to be involved with the team, whoever's going to be auditioning, like, and they're not seeing any of it. They will not see any of it, the actual dancers, the actual cheerleaders. And I just thought, like, we can glorify this, you guys, till the cows come home. But like at the end of the day, this is really about dollars and cents. And I just started to feel like, I know there's like a lot of speculation about like, well, why are they canceling that? And is this punishing the women? And, you know, kind of what the show meant to us kind of dialogue. And I'm just kind of on a different little wavelength about it. It's less like what this show means and, you know, how this impacts like the world of cheerleading or the women. It's just, you know, we are in an age right now where we're talking about like name, image, and likeness at on a collegiate level, where you have athletes that are saying, no more profiting off of my name, my pictures, my audio, my visual. Like I deserve to be able to be compensated for some of that. And it just made me think about like, I'm so sick of this. Okay, it said pause due to poor connection, and hopefully the words are matching coming out of my mouth. Like I'm so sick of Instagram sometimes. Anyway, my point was just that you have collegiate athletes who have, through activism of their own, said, we are not your property. You know, like they have pushed the envelope to really talk about like, hey, we should be able to profit off of our own name, image, and likeness. And I'm seeing, you could still see me? Good. Okay. Am I like matching my mouth and my words coming out of my mouth? Whatever. There's nothing I can do about it now. Um, but I'm just thinking about like the broader picture, right? And how this same issue and same commercial consideration is happening at the collegiate level, where you have college athletes who have pushed the envelope enough and complained enough to say, hey, we should be getting a piece of the pie, right? And here we are at the pro level, and there's very little leverage. You guys sign that away with the contracts that say that you're waiving all rights to your name, image, and likeness in perpetuity. Like you will never see any of that. And here we have this amazing show that's had 16 seasons, and the show wouldn't be anything without these women's stories, without their journeys. And you know, good, bad, and ugly, I mean, it's still been a freaking hit, and it's built up the Cowboys cheerleaders brand. And here they are renegotiating, or not renegotiating, negotiating a new deal. And it just really hit me that like y'all are going to see none of it, like none of it. Royalties in perpetuity. I am not an entertainment lawyer. I am not sitting here trying to speak to what you could get. I don't know, but I just think if there was, I'm just imagining a world where rather than kind of like think of like the nostalgic pieces of this puzzle, that we're starting to kind of ask in dollars and cents. Because when I see that she says the global impact on our brand, that means you guys built it, right? Like, that wouldn't have happened if you guys weren't part of the show and participating in these interviews and staying after practice to talk to people and whatever y'all are doing. I'm sure you're compensated probably for your time practicing and maybe your time spent with the show, but are you getting any of the royalties for the show being like aired on TV or like made available on different platforms? And these are rights that are negotiated for people who, I know you kind of sign them away for reality shows, but imagine if you did not sign those rights away. Like, and don't you think you should get like a cut of that? That's just where my head is going. Like, I kind of just felt like it was a little bit of a, what's the word I want to use? To say like you should be applauded to me was a little, I felt insulted, and maybe I shouldn't. I mean, maybe I'm turning into like this little ranting and raving mad woman here, but I just think on a larger scale, if you really think about what money is being made off of your backs, literally off of your backs, your blood, sweat, hard work, tears, personal triumphs, personal failures, whatever, bad practices, you name it, like all of that's on display for the entire world now. And for a pretty penny, we just haven't seen it yet. The announcement of who that partner will be, what the dollar amount associated with that show. Trust and believe that Kelly and Judy and Charlotte are going to be compensated completely outside of their little salary with the Dallas Cowboys team. I'm sure they're profiting personally from their involvement with the show. And I'm just raising the question of like, why not share that with the women who actually make the show happen, the actual dancers and cheerleaders? And again, I'm pretty sure that once you show up at auditions, you're signing away any interest in your own personal anything. Like, that's part of the deal. But I guess I'm just kind of like sick of how it's like always packaged with like smoke and mirrors. Like, we should just be so happy that our journeys are shared and we get to touch our fans. And there's monetization involved here, y'all. Like, I mean, your personal Instagrams have like 50 million followers. I'm exaggerating, but you have a fan base. Your name, image, and likeness actually has a lot of value. And I just think as we speak, it's being negotiated like as part of a team, not as an individual, but like the team, Dallas Cowboys, are actually negotiating a pretty penny to earn from a new platform to feature your stories, your name, your image, your visuals, your everything. And I just imagine a better space for us, right? Where you have like some leverage at the freaking table. Ooh, somebody wants to join me. And sorry for YouTube land, I don't know how you're gonna participate in this. You just might miss it. Okay. Let's see how this goes. Did I do it right? What the hell?
Hello.
Hi.
I just jumped on and I'm at work and I was like, you know what? This is important. I need to get in here.
I'm so glad you did. How you doing?
I'm good. Newly back from Portugal, but I saw the news about the show while I was abroad. Okay. So that was wild.
Yeah, so I would love your take on it. So for the purposes of YouTube land, and I'm so sorry, we have Megan. How do you say your last name? Pravdin joining. She auditioned for DCC. We're not getting into years. I don't remember when. Doesn't matter. 2014. Doesn't matter. But you having gone through this experience, I mean, we don't have to do like an impromptu interview, girl. I'm just curious what your thoughts are just based on what I've been sharing, because I have thoughts. Talk to me.
So, as I have been very vocal on my Instagram, I feel like the Cowboys are in hot water. CMT wants to distance themselves from the Jerry Jones love child and the scandal with Dalrymple.
Do you really think that's what it is? Like that they're wanting to distance themselves from the scandal? Because I guess that's what part that I really wasn't completely buying. I mean, I know we're all speculating that might have had something to do with it, but do you think that it really was about that versus
it's a hit show for 16 years.
Yeah.
I think I don't buy that's that it's just ending. And I do think they're going to ultimately take it to a streaming platform.
Yeah.
But then that takes the pressure off of CMT for having to atone for the really not great things that have been going on in the press lately with Cowboys. That's my opinion. That is not facts. That is, strictly my opinion. But yeah. I'm interested to see what it does, because when I auditioned, I was told that the TV show actually diminished the amount of girls that were willing to show up.
I've heard
because they were terrified that they were going to get dragged on TV for, or made fun of, or not produced in a favorable light.
Right.
So I'm really interested to see if it actually increases their viewership. So we'll see. I'm very interested. The way Kelly Finglass addressed it, it was interesting. She kind of said, we're optioning other things, and a lot of these hit shows they're using to convert new users onto subscription-based platforms.
Exactly.
So I wouldn't be surprised if it's something like that. But I think that the timing is super sus, given everything that just happened in the press with paying off the 4 cheerleaders from the Rich Dalrymple scandal.
Yes.
And then the Jerry Jones love child, honey, was a that was a surprise to me. I found that out when I read Sarah's article like a few days ago. So
lots and lots of like again, speculation. And I know that there's comments that I'm going to try to make sure we don't miss, but somebody loves your vibes at all times, girl. So yes, they're happy to see you join. No, there's definitely been surprising scandals, obviously, in the last couple months. And not to say that it's not related. I mean, my whole tangent is yes, it could be a link to CMT possibly wanting to distance themselves because of it. But at the same time, I'm just thinking of this big deal that's about to be announced, right? That's just completely all about featuring these girls in a way, however they want. They have no say-so over anything in terms of how they're depicted.
No, we have to sign before you even are allowed to audition. You have to sign
the waiver,
and give
right?
consent to the show. And they're profiting off of the show, but the girls are not.
Exactly.
So, and then we have no say over,
anything,
how we're edited, anything. And they do some of us real nice, and they do some of us real dirty. So.
Real dirty. And I guess that's my concern too. It's just it's just so greedy. You know what I mean? To know that the labor of your entire show is a group of thirsty, hungry, hardworking, talented people who are just, yes, they're going to sign the stupid waiver because that's the way you audition. And
we want to be on the team.
You want to be on the team. But when you think about the actual economics of the situation, it's just kind of that's just real interesting that you can, I mean, it makes sense legally the way that it's set up, right? That they're in a position right now to be at the bargaining table with whatever media platform and saying what they can and can't do, and that they have complete rights and ownership over how it's done, because they're protecting their brand. But we're in a world where individual athletes are saying, hey, damn it, I have a brand too that I should
look at what's happening in the NCAA and all of that. All these college athletes are finally getting rights. So I'm like, what? Okay, so the grown women, the grown men who have careers in the NFL and the NBA, where are our rights? Where's my,
Where? And that's the part that I find so mind-boggling, is just that thankfully these collegiate athletes have said, you know what, enough of this crap. They had hashtag not your property. You had some football players who were threatening to boycott the season. You had basketball. I mean, they literally raised sand. Okay. And next thing you know, they're talking a whole different tune. Oh, wait, we can't have this movement stir up. So now and you have lawmakers, the whole thing I've just been researching the NIL movement and just how we got here. But how is it going to be different and more favorable at the collegiate level than it is at the professional level? Please explain. I don't get that part as to how we're going to have a completely, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't apply to the players. They have certain rights that, yes, even though there's the NBA in their brand and the teams in their brand, and they're wanting to protect their brand, but the individual athletes are still able to get some compensation. And we know we're not getting paid, right? So let's not play a game as to it's not a livable wage that you can actually survive off of. But say any of those DCC that have like I said, 30,000 followers, 50, 60,000 followers on their individual accounts, being able to not so much just have endorsements, though. I'm talking about like whatever that media deal is, where you're getting all of those impressions and all of that content that's going to be pumped out, whether it's subscription based or however the hell it's based. Again, not my jam in terms of being like an entertainment lawyer and knowing how things are paid. But I'm just saying, imagine having a slice of that, royalties, whatever it's called, where you're able to like 50 freaking years from now and be like, yeah, I was on a TV show and it's still out there somewhere and I'm still collecting change from it. Like, you didn't get paid from the dang on team, not to that extent.
My episode from 7 years ago still plays. People still text me, oh, I saw your episode on CMT. So like, they are still playing that. And yeah. Like I'm trying to be that Ellen Pompeo, Grey's Anatomy, pay me every time.
Yes.
And this stuff is every streaming platform. Come on.
And it's not that it's about money. It's just, but like, I'm not even going to go down that route. It's just about like knowing your worth. This TV show would not actually be a success over 16 seasons without the women who put their whole lives on display. And yes, that's what you sign up for. And yes, you sign a little waiver, but I'm just imagining, like, where is this going? At some point, are we going to join the rest of the movement that's around, like, I own my name, image, and likeness, and I get to leverage what that's worth in the marketplace, versus I automatically have to sign that away once I decide to become a professional cheerleader, and my hands are tied, but you can make all the money? Like, nobody's talking about, well, it's not about the money when you're looking at probably what Kelly and Judy and Charlotte are making off of this damn deal. Like, so I'm just saying.
And the calendar, which is being sold with the women's likeness,
yes.
Not Charlotte's, the women.
It's not just being sold with the star on it. Like, let's be real. Like, that brand is the star, but I just feel, again, this is just more of like just understanding our worth. And they're saying it in so many words, right? Like, you can't ever speak to like, oh, the cheerleaders don't add anything, or they don't really have any worth or value outside of just being out there on the sidelines. They're saying the global impact on our brand. They're acknowledging it. Like, they have influence and inspiration. Like, all of that comes with an actual dollar sign, if you ask me. And that's going to be reflected in whatever they end up getting from this new platform.
Sorry.
No, you're just a little bit at work. It's fine.
I just wanted to be more quiet. But yeah, it's just really, it's time. And you and I we have some things in the works. Hopefully we'll be, getting some headway, but it's just more that people don't even really understand. I had someone write to me yesterday saying that, like, he's done all this research, like, as a man, he used to be like, oh yeah, the cheerleaders are fun to look at. And he's like, now I just wonder, like, how much are they getting paid? And I can tell you, someone told me once that they did an inquiry to, and I know kind of around what, like, bucks, what we charge versus what we made and years ago, but like, cowboys are literally 4 to 5 figures per girl, depending on whether they're signing or dancing. Okay, so like, the guy was like, how much do you think they made the other night doing WWE? And I'm like, that one, because of the amount of publicity, probably a little less, but just to show up at a corporate event and do Thunderstruck, it is like so much money. And the girls are getting, depending on their tenure, 100 for the appearance, 200, 300, 400, and it caps at 500. That's not per hour. That is for the appearance. You're charging 4 to 5 figures per girl, and they're getting $100 to $500. Like, this is the stuff people aren't talking about. This is the stuff that I'm not held to. I could talk about it as much as I want, and here's the truth, and that's the truth, and it's a truth that a lot of people don't know, but people are going to know it soon. But it's disgusting how much they charge versus how much the women are making.
Exactly. And it's staggering. And I guess, like, when you're talking about it and people are wanting to say, well, believe it or not, that's probably really good in the NFL, comparatively speaking, right? To be like, oh, you get 500? I don't get, I get my hourly wage when I do an appearance. So it can seem like, oh, that's good. And what are you complaining about? But you always have to think about like what they're able to bring in versus what you're actually getting. And again, if we can get out of this mindset of like, I'm just very happy to be here, like coming to America, just like not even questioning anything, and just the attitude of gratitude is fine. But like, come on though, like,
we are happy to be here, but we also deserve to be paid for our work.
We don't deserve to just be applauded.
So well. honey, that's all we're asking for.
That's it. It's that simple. Like, the should be applauded had me like gagging because I was like, it's not should be applauded. Like, the talent level that comes through for this competition, you know, to be on this team is through the roof. Like, people would pay money probably just to sit and watch the solos from finals, or like there's just
Amazing.
It's amazing talent. And so again, this isn't about like, oh, you just want shine, or you just want your worth to be not applauded, not celebrated in this like nostalgic, like, you know, I'm just kind of over like the hype of, you know, America's sweethearts and, you know, the hope and inspiration. And that's freaking beautiful. And trust, like, the show has touched so many people, whether positive or negative, and it all deserves to be glorified to an extent. It's just, come on, like, you can't speak out of both tongues with it. Like, if you really truly value these women's journeys being on display and all of the hard work that goes into it, there would just be a different mindset around what piece of that they should be entitled to. Like, how do you, it just drives me nuts thinking about them like negotiating with this new
well, we're platform. In the Great Resignation. Like, if you're not being paid your worth in the real world, you just leave your job and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So like to know that these women audition, and you know what? Something so interesting that a current cheerleader on an unnamed team told me. She's like, you're just on such a high that you made the team. They slide that paper in front of you at the first meeting. You're signing your life away for all you know. And she's like, you're just so that you made it back, or you made it on the team. You are not. She goes, actually, like, you discussed it on one of your lives, that like standard procedure is like, if you want to take 24 to 48 hours, have a lawyer look it over. But that is, you signed a contract, I signed a contract. Actually, now they just like docu-sign them. And something even more interesting is someone tried to pull their contract up, their current contract, and the link had expired. So she didn't even have, without having to go to her coach, which obviously would raise suspicion, she couldn't even get her visible 2021 through 2022 contract. She didn't even have access to it. The link expired. So, and they didn't give them paper contracts this year. Only
I've
the
heard the paper contracts that definitely are a thing of the past. The paper contracts, as well as like, I mean, the fact that they are not presented a copy of it is really problematic to me. I mean, it's like you said,
and given look it over.
Yeah, no.
Before the week's time.
No. But I'm just gonna like,
welcome to the team. Please sign your life away and your image, and we're gonna tell you how your hair is, how much you can weigh. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
All of the things.
Welcome to the team.
Sign it all away. But I mean, I know I go on my little activist like whatever, and it's not about that all the time. But I just want to imagine a world, right, where somewhere underground, everybody just decides collectively, right? Like, we're showing up at the DCC auditions this year. And I mean, obviously, you probably can't even like apply to audition, like online or otherwise, without signing some kind of paperwork, right? But I just wish there was like a joint, like, decision, boycott, like, we're not filming. Like, could you imagine what the frick that would be like if it was just kind of like, even if I signed it because I had to, just as an application to audition, if when it came down to it, people were just flat out refusing, like all of them, not just some of them where you're just going to be like, okay, well, you can leave. But like, imagine everybody saying, you know what, we're not comfortable moving forward with the filming of this show without reopening the conversation about what kind of compensation I can look to for my participation in this. Like,
but you know what the most interesting part about that is, think about it. It isn't the veterans that the fans rejoice. It isn't the veterans that they fall in love with. The show is about the rookies. And as someone who was a rookie, an aspiring rookie in 2014, I was actively suing the Bucks, and they had no idea. I was in a class action with the Bucks, and I was not about to rock any boats with them. It was not happening. So me being like, oh yes, so could I also please ask that I get paid a fair wage to be a, key like contributor? Myself and Vivian had big storylines on our season, and get it. Like, we were paid minimum wage. We were paid minimum wage every time. So if we had to go to a hair salon and film a makeover, we're getting paid minimum wage. If they wanted to do something in my apartment, I'm getting paid minimum wage for that. So They did that.
Right.
But again, like minimum wage, that ain't it, sis. Not for a 16-year hit TV show on a major television network. That ain't it.
That's not.
I can't even imagine what they're profiting off of that, what the Cowboys are profiting. So it's wild.
It makes you wonder. And I just wanted to like add that into the conversation because I was seeing, you know, like the different articles, and again, everybody has their take, you know, this is my little take on it. All I'm thinking about is just like, okay, once the deal is announced of how much they are getting on this new platform, it just begs the question, where's the cut? Where's the consideration for the cheerleader's name, image, and likeness that's going into creating the show? Like, where? And why can't we just at least start asking these questions as a community in terms of like, what will it mean if collegiate athletes have moved past this point? I mean, the freaking NCAA cheerleaders that are just hopping on there.
The Tiger Girls just had a huge win.
Well, no, I'm talking about the girls that are like freeing basketballs from behind the rims during the NCAA tournament. You know what I'm saying? That are actually getting a deal for freaking t-shirts of them actually being in the stunt and pulling the damn basketball down. Like, people are getting more savvy, and there's just a whole new market brewing for this. And so I'm just trying to understand where our pro dancers and cheerleaders going to get into
that.
We'll get into it. I mean, when are we going to like ask these questions, have these conversations?
When Roger Bell will give us a meeting, which, you know, someday.
We can have dreams, right? We can have dreams. Somebody on YouTube said, I hope another network picks up the show because he's excited for Ashley auditioning for a 5th season, or she, or whoever this is. I'm sorry. Yes, no, we're excited about the show continuing. I'm sure it will continue. I personally just would love to see a little, I don't know. I mean, again, that's my pipe dream of seeing people say, I'm not filming. Filming.
I think something also interesting, I don't know if you read Sarah's article on this, Sarah Hippola's article, like the crew wasn't aware. Like there were, I mean, the crew was OG. Like I could tell that when I was there, the crew had worked together for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is like, I know, you know, yes, maybe there's something, but if the streaming thing was just the next play, I don't think the crew would have been put out the way they were put out. I think the rug got pulled out because everyone is distancing themselves from this mess, this off-season mess that has come out from the Cowboys.
Yeah. And
that's what I think it is, because you don't lay off a loyal crew that's been together for 15 plus years. You know, Peter was the executive producer, whatever. Like, he knew it was happening, but none of his crew knew it was happening. Mm. So I just think there's more story, and I do think they're going to hit a pivot. And I hope that it goes onto a streaming service. But like I said, truthfully, I really don't think that they should continue to profit without bringing the girls in.
That's my point.
Is the rookies are the heart of the show. The rookies are the reason people are so bought into the brand. Like, literally. The people who are fans of this show are like literally like Bachelor Nation crazy.
They are
like obsessed. In a great, in like a really impassioned way that makes their brand so much more valuable. So like the Bachelor Nation folks, they get a lot of offers after they appear on the show. These girls, they're able to monetize their Instagrams 100%, but they're still giving a lot to the Cowboys brand and really not receiving much more than minimum wage and a few $100s an appearance back.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
That's a problem. That's a problem to me. I mean, at least if there was just some sort of like, again, collective bargaining where it's like, okay, maybe for people who didn't make the team, you're just like a regular reality show TV show contestant. Right. You get what you sign up for. It's the risk, blah, blah, blah. To the extent you make the team, though, there should be something that entitles you to compensation, because your story will be kind of continuing. I know it ends like once the season starts and all that, but I mean, I think if you have earned the right, like in her quote, if you have earned the opportunity to wear the legendary uniform, then I think you should also earn a piece of that pie. And that's literally my whole rant today, was just kind of like, let's think name, image, and likeness in the pro cheerleading world and space, and think about all the restrictions that you're under as a professional cheerleader on these teams, when you have so many rules about what you can say about being on a team, mentioning it by name. Like, there's so many rules around that. And so how do you build your personal brand as a professional cheerleader dancer if you aren't able to effectively utilize your name, image, and likeness. And like the DCC probably have like the biggest
following for sure.
and pull and all of that. And so I'm just thinking of these women, and I'm just, you know, like, you deserve more than just being applauded for your involvement with this 16 season freaking franchise of a show. And I'm sorry, I know you guys were just in freaking Mexico. It looked amazing. Like
They found out the show was canceled while they were filming, or while they were shooting.
While they were shooting, probably. Yeah, I mean, it's
I'm
just
sure
like
Kevin knew, but I don't know that the girls knew.
Wow. I think it's just a matter of just opening your mind to the other questions, right? Because it's not so much of like, oh man, we can't do the show anymore, or whatever. I don't know what they're being told, and I don't know what their reactions are. And I'm not trying to speak for anybody, trust, but I just think if I were in your shoes, I would just be really, really wondering when we're going to kind of move beyond this, take what's given, even though it's good comparatively to maybe other teams in the NFL. I just think you guys do set the standard of like the ultimate marketing machine in terms of the value of these franchises for the women. Like I mean, that
and they're thinking, so like, let's be the forward thinkers and starting to pay the women, like be the trendsetter. Exactly. Also, a legend is in the chat, Miss Kitty Carter. Hello, love her.
Hi.
Go in the chat. But yeah, so I mean, I think it's I hope that they can set the trend and set the precedent. But it's gonna take a lot to culturally change this. But I think the freedom that the NCAA athletes will now have is going to pave the way better than before. I hope that.
I mean, if nothing else, it can serve as a guide, right? Because I mean, the NCAA has different considerations that they were wanting to guard against. I mean, don't get me started on the NCAA, but they were really wanting to make sure that there wasn't like impropriety in the way that people were being recruited to join the different collegiate teams, so that there wasn't an unequal playing field, right? That was their explanation for why they had all these rules. But you know, now they're acting like they're all for it, and they've been for it for, you know, whatever. Who buys that? But at least now that we are way down that path, lawmakers have spoken on it, courts have spoken on it, and they're now opening up that field to everybody who is a collegiate athlete to be able to hopefully learn in a responsible way how to use their name, image, and likeness. Because now you have the colleges that are like, oh, well, we'll kind of like negotiate a deal for you guys, essentially. I mean, that's kind of happening now, right? Where they're keeping their toes in because that's how they get paid and get compensated. But I just think in our space as professional, you know, cheerleaders and dancers, you guys have your own businesses, your own interests outside of cheerleading and dancing, and you should be able to leverage all of that, your social media influence, all of the above. And it's not just about promotions and partnerships with brands. It's really just thinking about where the money is coming from. And with this particular deal, it's too lucrative, way too lucrative, to not have a piece of that pie, period. It's time to take action, and there is a solution. Absolutely. It's coming. I just think I was seeing all the news stories and the reactions, and I was just like, it's just so much bigger than that. Like, yeah, we're sorry that the show's not going to be on CMT, but that's not the main punchline here in terms of like why we should care. It's really that you guys make the show. And just don't forget that, like, global impact. People around the world want to understand, like you said, the rookies understanding their story. They have their favorite vets. I mean, you guys make the show. You make the brand, period. Just period. I'm so glad you joined. This is awesome. I mean,
thanks for having me in the middle of my workday. I'm sure all my coworkers are like, what is happening?
She's in a call. She's in the closet. No, but I appreciate you jumping on. I think I'd love to hear other thoughts too. These are just my little 2 cents. Again, I'm not a DCC, never have been, never been on a show. Don't know, what is the word? Reality TV land and how people are technically compensated for it. I do know there's kind of like the pull that you get afterwards and the popularity that you gain from being on a show like that. But at the end of the day, you have executive producers who are getting paid entirely outside of their salary in association with that show. And I think, go ahead.
One final aside. So my first reality show was Making the Team. Mm-hmm. And I literally was last summer in the final casting process for the Lizzo show that just aired.
Yes.
And my first question was, with all due, I have a career. So like, what's the story says on me going to LA for 5 weeks, going on sabbatical for my job? And they're like, oh, it's paid. Everything's paid for. Your travel's paid. Like, that's the way it should be. And the thing is, the show is the first of its kind. And on season 1, and they were going to pay me, put me up, travel, everything, press, all of it. And if you're going to tell me that a show that's been a hit for 16 years
can't do that,
can't put the girls up in dorms, like pay them something. Like, obviously it was not going to be the same as my career wage, but my God, that there was not even a question. The producer, the first call with the first casting producer, she's like, yeah, of course you're being paid. I was like, cool, okay, well, we can continue now. So that's what I'm saying, is like, this was a reality freaking dance show. Yes, it's Lizzo, but still, Lizzo any more money in a budget more likely than a hit show 15 years that's backed by one of the most famous NFL brands of all time.
They got the money. My point, they got the money.
And the treatment was very different in that scenario. So I'm just gonna leave it with that.
I appreciate that perspective, because people do need to understand the world of possibility, right? Because in this space especially, it's been so much of like, oh, there's this concept that there's a lack thereof, like there's not enough money somehow, or it's too much to ask for this, that, and the third, or whatever, the pandemic. I mean, you name it. There's all these reasons and excuses as to why resources cannot be devoted financially to the dancers and cheerleaders. But you just outlined is exactly what the experience could and should be like, where you are like, and I think that's really, to be honest, okay, now I'm on a tangent, go back to work, girl. But why I struggled with DCC making the team was just understanding, like, how you watch something, you're putting yourself in their shoes. And I'm just like, who can freaking afford to just drop everything? Like, you have a job, you have bills, you have responsibilities, you have families, you have all sorts of things. And here's an opportunity of a lifetime. You don't know from one night to the next whether you're going to be snipped or what, but you drop everything. And not everybody has the financial means to be putting themselves in that position. You get injured. Who's taking care of you? Nobody's job is necessarily going to just sit there and hold it for you. How do you manage, like, the whole show and how stressful it seemed for the women when I was watching? I was just like, I can't even, like, they can't do more. And I know they started putting people with, alumni, and thank goodness, and wooly woo. But
that was nice.
That was nice.
Love to see that.
But I was just like, they shouldn't even have been in that situation. Imagine for people who were able to make it through the process, at least past the first round, or at least if you make it into training camp, to have some different conversation around like how you are actually going to care for the people who are involved in the show.
It was really tough for me. Like, I didn't come for money. I was a server when I decided I was going to audition. I worked 3 jobs, and the only reason I really made it work was a friend from Tampa let me live with her and her boyfriend, who didn't really need my rent money, so they really barely charged me anything. I drove my car out there with what I could fit in it, and I had 0 job for 3 months. Like, I had never taken 3 months off of a job since I was 18. I was 25. So literally that, like, the things that people that are that are living anything lower than the upper class have to do to be able to afford to try and make that team is wild. So, and there is a lot of sacrifice that I don't know is always shown on the show. Sometimes
I feel like they started moving away from showing that a little bit, like the level of sacrifice to be on the show.
I mean, the one who came from Japan, not knowing the language, I actually think they had to get her an interpreter for interviews and for rehearsal. So like, there's just a lot that people don't realize. And if you grow up in Dallas and you go to TCU or SMU, okay, it's probably not super hard for you to make that transition. But people moving from out of state with different economic background, and it is a lot. Really, you're not allowed to have jobs in hospitality. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to be working while I'm out there. And I certainly was not starting a real career job in the most stressful 6 weeks of my life. Like, it wasn't happening. And my Buccaneers counterpart did start an amazing job with a medical device, and she got called in the office and was so scared of getting cut. She was like, I'll quit tomorrow. I mean, it was on the show. It's not a secret. Yeah. And she was going to walk away from a career job, which was paying her bills to also be moved out from Florida. And she was going to do all of that, just stay on the team. And she did stay on the team, but not without giving a lot up to be there.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's what?
See, and so all the more reason, right? Like if you are a participant on this show, and like you said, just having gone through this with production company for Lizzo's show, I cannot wait to watch that. That's what I'll be doing while I cannot wait to watch that. But I mean, it's just showing like what's possible and what should be the standard. And I just wish that we could hurry up and catch up to, sorry, my dog in the background, just hurry up and catch up to just that level of expectation. Like this should be part of the conversation. And I know that it's just a really hard space to bargain in when you are applying to be on the, to audition for the team. But you guys, like, how else are we going to freaking move the freaking needle? Like, I don't understand how we can't wait for it to be done for us. Like, and I do want to say, just because it is an opportunity, and you said it very well, like, and this is my beef with the NFL too. It's not so much like, oh, here are these same chicks talking shit about the NFL all the time, or complaining about this or complaining about that. It's literally just, here is a golden opportunity for you to set the standard and set the bar high for how we can shift this whole thing. And in this conversation, not necessarily for good, but you know what I'm saying? Like you actually have an opportunity to lead the way and establish a new standard as to how NFL cheerleaders will be treated. I mean, people do look at the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders like, damn, they seem to get it in terms of how to market their girls and do this for them and that for them in terms of like sponsorships and all of the things, like, sponsorship down to the.
And I think pay for a lot for other teams.
Exactly.
Let's
keep
trendsetters for the money.
Let's do that. And I know they already kind of are high up there in terms of pay, and like, I get it. We can glorify it.
The pay. Let's throw this out there. Let's throw that number out. My first W-2 from, whatever, I'll say it, the Bucks, was like $3,000 for 1 year's work. And all the people who aren't NFL cheerleaders in this, their mind just exploded. But that's no chance that any of these teams, by the way, even the most tenured people showing up doing the most appearances, there's no way they're clearing more than $25,000. Who's living off that? Who's living off that? Like in a big city. By the way, all the NFL teams are in major metropolitan cities. So like my God, my mind was like racked when I would think about the girls in San Francisco. Anyone know what the cost of living is in San Francisco? And you're making like $1,000 to be a cheerleader? Like what? I don't understand it. So it's got to change. And you're right. Someone's got to be the team, or we have to be the voice to get the team
something, right?
And take the lead, because once one team does it, they're all going to be forced to do it.
Exactly.
It's going to happen.
Exactly. And this is why, and I'll just make that last little plug and then I'll let you go back to work. When I asked for, a compensation survey in this space where people could, in private, tell me what you make from your team, whether that's your hourly wage, whether that's your appearance rate, whatever your compensation structure is, DM me. Like I can make an anonymized graph. Whoa. Right. No, I'm not doing a graph, y'all. I can make
an Excel sheet.
An Excel sheet that can at least give like maybe by conference, like NFC West team pays their cheerleaders X amount per hour for practices and games, and this amount for appearances, depending on tenure, or if you're a captain, you get this. Like literally that information can be anonymized and shared back out. And at least that will help conversations of like for even maybe directors or just, the teams themselves, the individuals of these teams, to say, hey, just so you know, this is what other people are paying or are being paid. And we think that we need a raise. You're not going to get raises unless you ask for them, right? And I just think ultimately it's the beginning of pushing that envelope further and further and further. And knowledge is power. If you would like to participate in terms of like updating the information that I did collect, let me know, hit me up.
But we need the information. I mean, what was paid is irrelevant. I'm sorry. I'm a relic in the NFL world. My rookie year was 2009. So things are different now. Things are different. So all of us want to know what the current standard is so we can help push for better. Yeah. And so many people are afraid, but we won't out you. Just help us because we're going to help you.
It's not about getting anybody in any kind of trouble. I think it's literally just sharing information in a way that empowers people, right? And so I'm the vault. It's just a matter of, do you want some transparency in a world where there kind of is none? Do you think it will actually help conversations that you're trying to have? You know, are we there yet where we can expect an actual salary for these positions? Maybe not, but I mean, how else are we going to move in that direction? I guess is my whole point. Right. And I just encourage people, if you're not following what's going on in the collegiate space around name, image, and likeness, that you get up to speed and that you just start asking some questions in terms of like how that applies to you as you're building your brand, as you're considering retirement, as you are investing so much with these teams. Think about how you're going to be able to leverage that going forward. Not everybody has a dang on TV show, but for these Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, that's my final little thought. I just think that whatever new deal gets announced on a new platform on a global scale, that you should be more than applauded. You should be compensated. And I hope that there is a way in my dreamland that y'all can have that conversation collectively together to say, yo, I'm not staying after practice till like 3 a.m. to film this damn interview and getting a freaking hourly wage associated with it. Okay? Like I don't know, whatever. My ass would just be cut from every single team. This is why I'm retired.
Like keep it to unionize the cheerleaders from my to God's ears, honey. We're gonna get some of our league superstar alumni unionize. It's coming. Coming. We have to manifest it. But thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for joining.
Yes. I'm glad we got to like kind of catch up in a public forum.
I know. I love it. Impromptu as hell. But you get back to work and thank you so much for joining.
Of course. Bye.
Bye. Well, you guys, there we have it. Okay, this is gonna be fun. I kind of like the unscripted, pop on, see what happens. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you everybody for listening. I've said enough. That's definitely, like I said, my 2 cents. I love the fact that Megan jumped on. If you would like to drop me a DM with your compensation for your team, again, it will be I need you to tell me what team it is, or tell me what conference and whatever information you're willing to share. I just think it can go a long way in some of these conversations. Everybody's just going to be making more informed decisions and maybe deciding to have conversations with the rest of your teammates. And maybe that leads to meetings with your directors where you just can say like, hey, we do know what other people are getting. And is there a way that you could present this information to get us all a raise? Like it starts there, right? So thanks again for all of your encouraging words. With surgery, I hope to be putting out episodes in the next few weeks, or a couple weeks. I'm not going to say a few weeks. And best of luck to everybody who's auditioning. I've been seeing the end of the year ceremonies and pictures, and I know auditions are happening. Congratulations on taking the first step. Believe in yourselves. I'm excited to see what comes. And this will be, one of many little random ass cheer chats, but that's my 2 cents. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. And until next time, see you guys.